Hi, my name is David Clay, and I want to welcome you, each of you, to a new video about the meanings of the 114 sayings from the mysterious but spiritually powerful Gospel of Thomas. Beginning with this video, this will be the first in a series of videos that we're going to do. They're each one entitled Living the Supernatural Life. It's the intent and the purpose of this new series of videos to explain to you not only the interpretation and the meaning of each of these 114 sayings that comprise and make up the Gospel of Thomas, but also how the spiritual secrets revealed by each of these 114 sayings can be applied in practical ways to supernaturally change events and circumstances in your daily life. I think it's important here to remember a saying of Jesus, and I quote, and you can read it with me on the screen. Jesus said, "I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly." In saying this, Jesus was not referring strictly to our afterlife, as so many Christians believe. Rather, he was also referring to the events and the circumstances of our everyday lives while we are physically alive in the physical state of being. It's perhaps one of the greatest failures of organized so-called Orthodox Christianity in that the church has failed dismally in giving us truly workable and demonstrable and supernaturally imbued and powerful ways of dealing with and solving our everyday dilemmas and problems. And when I use the term the church, I'm referring here to both the failure of the Catholic as well as the Protestant denominations to meet and address our everyday human problems. They are all guilty of this. The organized church has a lot to say about their view of our afterlife, but very little in the way of practical treatments, and spiritual treatments that is, for our everyday physical life in the here and now. It's the intent and purpose of this new series of videos, Living the Supernatural Life, that we have planned to correct that situation by giving you practical solutions to life's problems. Solutions given in the truly most remarkable of all the Gospels, the powerful and power-filled Gospel of Thomas. In this video, we will be unlocking and revealing the secrets and the meaning of saying 70. Saying number 70 from the Gospel of Thomas. So, without further delay, let's look at and read saying 70 from this ancient Gospel. Okay, looking at saying 70, let's see if we can reveal the deeper secret behind it. I will read it if you will follow along on the screen. Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have within you will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will destroy you." Well, first off, it becomes pretty obvious that whatever this mysterious thing is that we all have within us is natural to us. It's part of our basic makeup as a human being. It's not something that we have to just hear about and then go looking for. It's inherent to our very nature, evidently. According to this Gospel in saying 70, that's what it's saying. However, the wording in saying 70 clearly indicates that it is indeed something the presence and the awareness of which is not necessarily outward and so obvious to most humans. When saying 70 uses the very specific wording of having to bring this thing forth which is within us, then it seems pretty clear that this is something hidden, deep within our very being, not something that would necessarily be obvious and known to most men and women. If you guessed yourself and assumed that what we're talking about here in saying 70 is the Spirit and the presence of God, then you're 100% correct. Saying 70, unlike so many of the other 114 sayings in this ancient Gospel, is unusually explicit and direct in presenting its spiritual message. So once again, it is the veritable Spirit and divine presence of God that saying 70 is referring to as that which is within you. However, most of humanity, both now as well as in the ancient past, goes through their entire lives without ever knowing, suspecting this mysterious and mystical truth. So what saying 70 is telling us is that it is the Spirit and very presence of God that now waits for you to bring it forth. It is you yourself who must learn to activate the God within you. And in the remainder of this video, that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to reveal to you an ancient mystical secret, a secret which will open and give to you the veritable power and might of God to not only heal the sick as a true practicing Christian healer, just as the apostles were, but also the power to change and alter negative human events and circumstances into their opposite and positive counterpart. It is a miracle-producing secret, and I hope you use it wisely and responsibly. Though I call it a secret, what I'm actually about to reveal to you is not a secret at all. It actually isn't a secret because the Apostle Paul revealed the secret of its function and practice over 2,000 years ago when he wrote in the first letter to the Corinthians the words in quote that you now see on the screen. Let me read them out to you out loud. Do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells within you? There you have it from Paul himself. Here we have confirmation of an often overlooked and unrecognized spiritual truth. Does it not logically follow that if God's Spirit and God's presence dwells within each of us, then does not God's power and might also dwell within us? Now, I do admit that it would be a hard fact to validate and prove, at least based on the behavior and actions of most human beings nowadays. Of course, again here, the real secret is how do we bring forth and activate this supernatural power, this power that now sleeps within each and every one of our human souls. Of course, the pressing question that all of this raises is, how do we open ourselves, our deepest inner self, in order to let this supernatural spirit and divine presence of God come forth? That is to come forth in order that this unseen connection to the very real supernatural power that literally dwells deep within each of us can mysteriously come forth and thus positively alter and change certain specific negative events and circumstances that happen to be presently manifesting in our life and experience. What I'm referring to here is negative situation or problems, sickness, anything that's a problem that could be manifesting as an experience in our life. It can be sickness and illness or any other problem for that matter. Anything that's considered a negative situation, whether it's great or small, it doesn't matter. If it's a negative situation and manifesting in our life, then that's what we're speaking of here. The ancient mystics who compiled the Gospel of Thomas knew that God is a supernatural force, or as we would say today in the terminology of modern science, that God is pure energy, I guess you could say. The highest expression of energy. The New Testament reveals to us a powerful mystical secret that is often overlooked by those seeking to know exactly who and what God is. And there it tells us explicitly that the divine makeup and very constitution and total activity and expression of God can be stated and expressed with one word: love. God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Indeed, as the New Testament clearly states this, again and again, God is love. In fact, the New Testament makes it not only abundantly clear exactly what and definitively is the makeup and constitution of God, but also that God's presence dwells within each of us. And if God's presence, as I say again, dwells within each of us, does not also God's power and might. However, I do admit that it would be a hard fact to validate based on the current events of most people, humans and circumstances today. If you follow the precise instructions that make up the entirety of this relatively short video, then you'll come to understand and see love not as simply the expression of a positive emotion, but as the very first cause and veritable foundation of the universe, both the seen and the unseen. Indeed, that which is the primal substance, force, and intelligence of all creation in existence. But you must not just take my word for it. No, mere words are not sufficient to describe what I'm presenting to you here. This which you're about to encounter, if you follow and persist and follow these instructions, is something that can only be fully understood through and by your own first-hand personal experience. Nothing that I can say, or anyone else for that matter, will convince you like your own experience. If you follow, that is, of course, as I said a moment ago, if you follow the few simple instructions contained in this video. That's why I made this video, so that you would have these instructions. So take advantage of it. You'll look back on this one video as perhaps the most important video that you ever watched in your life, if you learn to use what I'm talking about here. Strangely, the ancient mystics likewise knew thousands of years ago what modern science has also come to know, which is that like attracts like. This is a fundamental law of nature which we see operating throughout all of nature, throughout the universe, the entire universe, and human experience. This law explains why it was that when Jesus saw that the 5,000 people who had gathered to hear him preach and see him heal were hungry and that they needed food, he at first simply commanded his disciples to go and feed them. However, if you remember from reading it in Matthew, his disciples then informed him that they did not have enough food on hand to feed this many people. There were 5,000 people there. Jesus then asked them specifically how much food they did have on hand. The disciples replied, and I quote, "We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes." Now it is important to note here what Jesus next did. Strangely, he did not just then go ahead and manifest the extra food needed in order to feed the large crowd, but rather he specifically then commanded his disciples that they should bring to him what fish and bread that they did have. The question that then begs answering is, why didn't Jesus, upon learning that there simply wasn't enough food on hand to feed everybody, then why didn't he just then immediately go ahead and manifest the extra food needed, rather than first instructing his disciples to bring to him the 5 loaves and 2 fishes that they did have? This small point in detail has been overlooked throughout Christian history, but like so many other secrets contained in the Bible, it teaches and demonstrates for us another hidden and or overlooked little-known law of the universe that comes into play in operation whenever we attempt to pray or use prayer to meet our wants and needs, or even when people use such techniques as what is called the law of attraction, which is just another form of prayer. Of course, unbeknownst to most Christians, even the spiritual activity of praying or prayer operates within a very specific set of spiritual steps, according to a very specific spiritual formula. In fact, to manifest anything through the use of a spiritual process or procedure, such as that which I'm revealing to you in this video, requires that we follow a very specific set of steps or formula, just like any other process or method within nature requires us to follow and observe. If you're wiring something that would use electricity, then you don't put and poke wires just anywhere fancy might lead you to. No, you follow a proven set of circuit that nature instructs us to use. The laws that electricity operates within and under, or at least you better, unless you want to get electrocuted. Well, the law of manifesting through prayer likewise has a very specific procedure that must be followed if you expect to get any sort of answer or results. This is why Jesus, after learning that there wasn't enough food, requested that his disciples bring to him what food there was. Jesus knew that if his intent was to spiritually manifest the food necessary to feed the 5,000 people there, that in accordance with this law that like attracts like, then he would have to have some small representative sample of that which he intended to manifest. This is why he requested them to bring the 5 loaves and 2 fish to him before manifesting what was needed. Otherwise, he'd just say, well, here, I'm going to manifest it. Therefore, if you desire to attract and bring forth in the manifestation that which is within you, or more specifically, the light, power, and the Spirit of God, His very presence, then you must summon and have within you that which God constitutes God, which God is made of. The substance of God, which the New Testament Scripture tells us very clearly, constitutes God, that indeed God is love. Pure, all-transcending love. Agape in Greek. God is love. It's just that simple. And in order to attract God, you have to generate love within you. A lot of people don't realize that this is part of the formula, but it is. As a direct consequence of the activity of this law, that is the law of like attracting like, you begin and call this the first part of the formula for bringing forth the Spirit of God. The first part of the formula, of course, is, as it says on the screen, is to generate love, which as a direct consequence will attract and bring forth that greatest love which exists deep within your being, and is the love that is the very substance of the Spirit of God Himself. Therefore, the secret to bringing forth that which is within us, now remember this, the secret to bringing forth that which is within us, or more specifically, the Spirit of God, is that we must learn to generate within us, if only for a moment, the complete feeling and emotion of love. Therefore, the first part of this formula, I keep referring to, and I keep repeating it so that you remember it. The formula for the spiritual process, if you prefer, for bringing forth within you the Spirit of God, is that you must learn to generate, as I've stressed, if only for the briefest moment, to generate the complete feeling of love. The strongest feeling of love that you're capable of feeling, sustaining. Now, intense feeling is the key here. Again, if you can do this only for the briefest moment, almost a nanosecond, I often say, but as long as you can, just hold it in your consciousness, that will be sufficient enough to draw forth from the depths of your being this invisible supernatural spirit that thus likewise is the might and the power of the divine presence of the Spirit of God. The more you do this, let me reassure you, the easier it becomes. It should be very easy once you get a handle on this to generate this feeling of love. This supernatural force will come forth exerting power and influence on your present circumstances or the healing image that you project through your imagination. To accomplish this, all you need to do is to picture in your mind whatever images that will create and begin to generate within you the feeling of the purest and strongest love possible for you to imagine, sustain, and believe in. And maintain, of course, in your focus and awareness. Of course, it might be simply any image of perhaps your children, your spouse, boyfriend, or girlfriend, or a loving pet, such as a dog or a cat, or for that matter, any other images that will bring into your mental focus and awareness the strongest feelings of love. Since true compassion for others co-equally is a co-equal powerful expression of love, so perhaps if you've seen, say, some homeless person or some other person in a dire situation or serious situation where you felt and generated compassion, an abiding sense of compassion, then this likewise is an expression of love in the truest and the deepest sense. Remember, just generate a feeling of compassion. If you remember someone that you wanted to help, or you felt bad for, or whatever, that's feeling compassion. Keep easily accessible to your awareness the selected image that most easily arises within you these feelings of love or compassion. Keep your chosen image in your mind's eye and focus on it from time to time as you proceed, implementing the rest of this ancient mystical formula. Be sure to pick an image of that which will most easily fill your consciousness with the strongest feelings of the purest love possible for you to feel and sustain. In effect, this image of love will henceforth really it will equate with and represent in your consciousness your feeling and identity with the word and the meaning of the idea and the emotional concept of God. When you think of God, you will start thinking of this love. Or when you're thinking of this love, then you also will think of God. It will equate with God. All you need to do here is simply remember and keep at the forefront of your mind that God is love. Pure love is God. This image that you're now holding in your awareness will from now on represent to your conscious awareness the invisible, but very immediate, accessible and powerful living spirit and very being of God. That is God dwelling within you. Remember from now on, as you start practicing and using this powerful ancient spiritual formula, whatever image you equate with a powerful feeling of love will represent in your conscious awareness the invisible but living and powerful divine presence of the Spirit of God Himself. Remember, this is the first part of this powerful ancient process and formula for true and effective and demonstrable prayer. Now the next and second step in activating the power of this ancient mystical process for real and effective prayer is to bring into your mind's eye and awareness some representative image that fully represents and identifies whatever problem, negative situation, or dilemma that you're now facing or having to deal with. Or if you're praying for another, then whatever it is that they are facing or dealing with. In using words, problem, negative situation, and our dilemma, I'm denoting whatever it is that you're wanting to be changed through and by the direct supernatural power of God. That power that always and forever exists as a state of absolute perfection, balance, and equanimity. It exists around wherever the Spirit of God is present. It is important that you understand and are 100% clear on the following spiritual point of spiritual law. Wherever the Spirit and divine presence is manifesting, then know for a fact that this presence of the Spirit of God is emanating a supernatural state of omnipotent expression of the all-pervading divine influence. This divine emanation of the Spirit of God permeates and inundates all that is within its presence with the ultimate non-dual, non-polarized state of perfection, which is the continual, eternal emanation of the divine influence of the presence of the Spirit of God. Nothing that we would consider as negative, erroneous, or evil in human terms, and thus unbalanced, can even so much as barely exist under this omnipotent divine presence and spiritual influence. If it is a person that you're wanting to heal, then picture that individual person. Again, let me repeat now, lest you misunderstand. You now want to hold in your mind's eye some representative image of that which you're wanting to supernaturally change through the supernatural power. It is always the perfected consequence whenever and wherever the Spirit of God is present. What you have effectively just done here is to first generate within your own heart and mind an intense feeling of pure love. Now you feel and sense that love coming forth from the depths of your being. Keep ever at the forefront of your awareness the fact that this love, which is now swelling up within you, is the living divine presence of the Spirit of God. Live it and feel it. Know that this divine Spirit and presence has been up to now dormant, but nevertheless it is now alive and waiting deep within you, and has waited there since the very creation of your soul. Now this is the place in this ancient spiritual formula where you now introduce into your conscious awareness a representation and or an image of a problem, situation, or issue that you desire to have changed from the negative reality and manifestation that it may be presently appearing in the physical world, to its counter positive outcome, circumstance, and reality. And as you do this, also feel your consciousness and the image of the problem you wish to change as if both were suddenly immersed within and filled with the awareness of the living and immediate divine presence of the supernatural power and Spirit of God. For that's what is happening. The Spirit of God, which is now being brought forth and sustained in your awareness by the feelings of pure love that you have generated within yourself. Now, I realize this sounds a little bit like a mental juggling act, but it is easier to do than you might think. And perfection here is not required. It is intent and dedication which ultimately sways the spirit and wins the day. Of course, you do realize what is happening here when you follow the spiritual formula and process. It is simply the realization of, and therefore the manifestation of, God's divine presence, which now brings about the desired end result. You may wonder, especially if you've been disappointed with your present prayer life and the results that you've gotten so far using Christian prayer, or should I more correctly say the results that you haven't gotten from your exercise, practice, and use of Christian prayer. You may be very surprised at the results you will get with this method. I can assure you it is a very effective method. Mainstream Christian teaching has overlooked the true secret of spiritual healing, and indeed the true and correct practice of prayer for the last 1800 years. This has been my discovery. Nevertheless, prayer's true, powerful, and effective message is openly revealed in 2 Corinthians in 10 simple words written by the Apostle Paul. Of course, we call Paul an apostle when he actually was an apostle, but we've given him that distinction and honor. The Apostle Paul, wherein he states, what I've come to believe is perhaps one of the most profound and powerful secrets recorded anywhere in all of the Christian New Testament. Now, I pointed this deep and profound spiritual truth out in other videos, and I will continue to do so because it is simply one of the greatest and most life-transformative truths in all of the Bible. Paul writes in his second letter to the Corinthians, and I quote, you can read it with me on the screen, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Now, what this specifically means is that wherever the Spirit of God happens to be present, then nothing, absolutely nothing at all, of an imperfect or unbalanced nature or negative manifestation can exist. In human terms and thinking, we would say that wherever the Spirit of God happens to be presently manifesting its divine presence, then nothing that we from a human perspective would view or interpret as being bad or negative can exist or take place. You can't do it while God's Spirit is present. It's important that you now add and frequently speak, or at least call to mind frequently, as you follow the other instructions in the spiritual process or formula that I've just given you. Think of the reputation of calling to mind these powerful 10 words of spiritual truth as the third step in this powerful ancient formula or process of praying. You can rightly think of these 10 powerful words as if they were a mantra, let's say, of some sort. Let's call them a Christian mantra. But also remember the supernatural power invoked in the repetition of these 10 words quoted by Paul is not simply attendant to their mere physical repetition, but rather is inherent within and invoked by their understanding and meaning in your consciousness. So come to understand the inherent meaning within these words. Keep their spiritual implication and meaning in your ongoing awareness as you also consider and hold in mind that situation that you desire to be changed, or as the case might be, that specific healing that you desire to miraculously take place. This is the true secret, the miraculous working of this unbelievably powerful ancient method of prayer. Know that what you're saying as you silently think these 10 words, or as you speak them out loud, is a statement of unconditional spiritual truth. Where God's Spirit is present, only perfection and absolute balance and peace can manifest. Sickness, disease, as well as any other condition that we humans would interpret as bad or negative simply can have no footing or existence apart of that reality once you do this. You only have to do this exercise for just a few minutes. It's not the time spent doing these 3 steps as much as it is the intense feelings that you generate within you as you perform this very effective ancient rite and ritual. I'll be very anxious to hear from many of you the miracles that you might wrought if you adopt and follow these instructions. I hope this video will bless each and every one of you. That is my sincere desire. And if you follow this formula, I can assure you it will. If you've been blessed and benefited from this video or any of the videos that we do, I hope you will remember us through your donation on Patreon to our efforts. Simply forward your donation to patreon.com/Secrets of Thomas. And I thank you. God bless.